Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever wondered how an ancient, deeply structured religious framework actually translates into profound, real-world mental fortitude? Well, we're going on a really fascinating journey into that exact connection today. Let's dive right in.
Just look at the Kaaba here. Think of it like a giant magnetic force. It's the perfect illustration of that central, unifying pull Islam has on its followers all over the globe. Millions of people literally drawn to a singular, shared spiritual center. It creates this foundation of just incredible collective strength. Which brings us to a really profound question. How do these ancient, repetitive, daily physical rituals actually forge the mental strength to endure the unendurable, or even to forgive the unforgivable? We're not just here to run through textbook facts today. We're exploring a deeply tested system of spiritual survival and psychological endurance. Section 1, the foundation, the 5 pillars. So to really understand this, we need to establish the architectural framework of the faith first, right? Because this acts as the unshakable foundation for a committed Muslim's entire life. You're likely familiar with these principal duties, commonly called the 5 pillars. We've got the Shahada, the declaration of faith, Salah, the daily prayer, Zakat, or almsgiving, Psalm, the fasting, and finally Hajj, the pilgrimage. These 5 pillars are the absolute core requirements of Islamic practice. And what's so powerful here is how they completely unite believers, absolutely regardless of any ethnic, regional, or sectarian differences. It's a true leveler. Now, while these practices are, of course, deeply rooted in the Quran and the Hadith, which are the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, they were actually formally systematized a bit later, in the early 11th century. An Islamic scholar named Abu Muslim Abd el-Kahir al-Baghdadi categorized these obligations in a major theological work on the roots of religion. And that structured framework, it's the exact same one universally taught today. Moving on to Section 2, the core mechanisms, Shahada and Salah. Let's really zoom in on these 2 primary everyday practices of the religion. First up, the Shahada. It's the fundamental statement of faith. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger. This is the ultimate declaration of monotheism, which is known as Tawheed. It's essentially the principal mark of Islamic orthodoxy. In fact, reciting it out loud in front of witnesses is the very first mandatory requirement for anyone converting to Islam. And observing the sheer geopolitical footprint of this declaration is super instructive. The Shahada is such a central identifying feature that it's prominently displayed on the national flags of countries like Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. It really demonstrates how this deeply personal declaration of faith scales all the way up to national and cultural identity. Then we have the second core daily mechanism, Salah. This is the ritual prayer conducted 5 times every single day: dawn, midday, late afternoon, sunset, and night. And it requires serious, focused intention. Before a believer can even begin to pray, they have to undergo a physical purification process, an ablution called wudu, and then physically direct themselves toward the Qibla, the direction of Mecca. This prayer gives a remarkably regular, structured, communal rhythm to the day. It unites Muslims locally and globally, whether you're performing it totally alone in your living room or in a massive congregation, like during the prescribed Friday prayers led by an imam. It demands that a person physically conform to the will of God through very specific bowing and prostrating movements. Section 3, cleansing the heart. Okay, so here is the crucial pivot. We need to move from looking at these external, observable actions to truly understanding their internal, spiritual purpose. I want you to actively ponder this for a second. We see people reciting a declaration, right? We see them performing ritual washing and bowing 5 times a day. But how does that physically change a person's inner state? What is the strict regimen actually doing to the human heart? Scholar Yasmin Mogahed has this brilliantly relatable metaphor for this. Just as our human bodies naturally gather physical dirt and require a daily shower to stay clean, human nature sins, meaning we naturally gather spiritual dirt. Think about it. If you don't take a physical shower for a few days, you feel gross, right? Well, similarly, without spiritual cleansing, the heart gets coated in grime. Daily salah and daily repentance act as that shower. They are the essential oxygen and cleansing needed to maintain a healthy, functioning spiritual heart. Which brings us to Section 4, True Stories of Resilience. Let's step completely out of the theory now. We're going to look at 2 modern, real-life case studies that vividly and honestly, heartbreakingly, demonstrate the kind of resilience produced by a heavily protected, healthy heart. This first story is absolutely gut-wrenching. Yasmin Moghahed recounts the story of a mother whose perfectly healthy 3-year-old daughter just suddenly stopped talking. They ran tests, and doctors delivered a devastating diagnosis. The child had MPS. It's a rare, fatal genetic disorder, and there's no cure. The mother was told she'd have to watch her little girl slowly lose all of her faculties and that she wouldn't live past age 13. Then they tested her second daughter. She had it too. Then the third daughter. All 3 girls had this terminal disorder, meaning they would slowly lose the ability to do anything at all, even the basic blessing of swallowing their own saliva without choking. Now, the mother's response to this is just shocking. Her exact words were, "I'm drowning in gratitude." Just let that sink in. How on earth can someone facing a trial of that magnitude feel gratitude? It really goes to show how a spiritually nourished heart can withstand an absolute tsunami of grief without being entirely broken or destroyed by it. And her resilience didn't stop there. Even though this incredible woman had a 4th child with severe autism, she kept going. She turned her family home into a literal hospital ward, running suction machines constantly just so her daughters wouldn't choke. She eventually lost 2 of those daughters at the age of 19. Yet, through this unimaginable nightmare, she never once asked, "Why me?" Instead, her spiritually cleansed heart constantly focused its gratitude on people who were suffering in even worse situations than her own. Early on in the diagnosis, there was this remarkably raw moment between the parents. Her husband looked at his 3 beautiful girls in absolute crushing despair and said, "I feel like I'm looking at 3 graves." But her iman, her deep-rooted faith, reframed the tragedy entirely. She looked right back at him and said, "No, there are 3 doors to Jannah." Jannah meaning paradise. This right here is the ultimate power of a structured, healthy heart. The sheer ability to reframe the darkest human tragedies into profound spiritual purpose. Okay, let's look at our second modern story. This one focuses on a man named Dr. Jitmod, an older, former school principal originally from Thailand. Dr. Jitmod had already been through immense pain, having recently lost his wife to cancer. Then one night, he gets that dreaded 3 a.m. phone call. His 21-year-old son, who was just out delivering pizzas, had been brutally murdered, completely slaughtered on the job. Facing this horrific, senseless nightmare, lawyers told him the killer was in maximum security. Dr. Jitmod then spent 2 grueling years trying to bypass the prison system's security. But get this, not to seek vengeance, not to yell at him or curse him. He fought the system because, in his own words, "I want to meet with him because I want to forgive him." And this culminated in a real, highly documented moment inside an American courtroom. This grieving father finally stood face to face with the man who murdered his boy, and he hugged him. He literally wrapped his arms around him and, legally and spiritually, forgave him on behalf of himself and his late wife. When people asked why he went to such unimaginable lengths to forgive this man, Dr. Jitmod said he wanted the murderer to eventually find paradise alongside the very son he killed. I mean, wow, that is a level of grace that absolutely defies human logic. So, to sum up what we're really seeing here today, these aren't ancient myths about prophets from thousands of years ago. These are real people living in our modern world, dealing with modern tragedies. And their immense capability to forgive and endure isn't just some accident. It's the direct result of a heart fortified against unimaginable pain, built through the daily spiritual nourishment found in the foundational pillars of their faith. Which leaves us with this final thought. If a regularly cleansed heart, one nourished by consistent, structural devotion, can produce this awe-inspiring level of resilience in the face of absolute devastation, what burdens could we overcome by tending to our own spiritual foundations? How might taking a hard look at our own daily rituals help us weather our own life tsunamis?